On a planet not so far from Earth, there lived creatures that could no longer survive where they were. Resources there had become dangerously scarce, and extinction was just around the corner. Their population, only in the thousands. They possessed bizarre abilities to morph into other beings, which had helped them endure harsh conditions for ages. But now they were looking beyond their sky. They saw Earth, that young blue planet, teeming with oceans, forests, life. A burning ambition sparked to claim a place there, even if it meant taking over Earth itself and its inhabitants. So their leaders and thinkers began crafting a plan to move to Earth, but almost immediately, they ran into a massive problem: humans. Humans were countless. How could they possibly overpower millions spread across cities, villages, jungles, deserts? They pored over human behavior, languages, fears, customs, every tiny detail until a plan formed. A plan no human could have ever imagined. It would rely on sneaking silently into human lives, so subtly that no one would even sense them. Their first step: a remote village. No unknown forests nearby to hide any surprises that might ruin their scheme. There they decided to take on the forms of beloved pets: cats, dogs, rabbits, birds. Humans willingly opened their homes and hearts to these creatures, without a hint of suspicion. They sent 1,000 of their own in a single wave, using advanced light-based travel. They spread throughout the village, disguised perfectly, slipping into homes without a hitch. At first, villagers noticed only small changes in their pets. Cats would stare for long moments with unsettling red eyes. Dogs abruptly stopped playing. Locals chalked it up to a heat wave or some passing illness. But over time, stranger signs emerged. Those red eyes seemed to glow even brighter at night. An eerie tension wrapped around the village. Yet most villagers had no clue these animals weren't their own at all. They were beings from space, who'd first quietly disposed of the original pets, then replaced them. The real animals that hadn't been swapped, they began acting odd, skittish, barking, meowing wildly at these imposters. The infiltrators felt threatened. These animals could expose them through sheer instinct, so they systematically wiped them out. Within a few nights, almost all remaining real pets were gone. Villagers stumbled on blood trails in alleys and near barns, never knowing what killed their beloved creatures. Then the terror escalated. With almost no genuine animals left, these creatures started moving into human homes outright and began targeting children. Mothers woke to cold, empty beds. Families tore through their homes, searching, finding nothing. No forced doors, no screams in the night. It was as if something invisible had stolen their kids right from under their noses. Some parents even placed extra pillows under their children's covers, tricking themselves into thinking their kids still slept peacefully there. Too terrified to confront the horrific truth, there was no one left. Grief thickened over the village like dark smoke. A few men tried to flee or send word for help, but anyone who neared the village boundary, leaving or returning, was later found dead. It seemed someone or something was determined to keep what was happening buried within that village forever. With the village's numbers dwindling after those black nights, the creatures decided it was time for their final move. Wipe out the remaining humans entirely, then morph into them. They would become exact replicas of the villagers, invite more of their kind to settle secretly, and from there, expand outward. But Earth caught a stroke of luck. There was a man named Harry. He uncovered what was truly happening when he saw them, killing his fellow villagers. Terrified, he fled into the night, weaving through fields and forests, watching every shadow, catching short naps before bolting awake to keep running. He wasn't fleeing just to save himself. Deep inside, he swore he'd protect every child on Earth from suffering the same fate. He passed through other villages on his desperate path, warning them, only to be laughed at, mocked. They called him crazy. Some kind women pitied him, offering bread and water, assuming he was a wandering lunatic lost to loneliness and hunger. Harry had no choice but to keep pushing on. At last, he reached a real city, the first since leaving his doomed village. He marched straight to local authorities, desperate to save what he could. He told them everything: creatures from the sky, taking the forms of pets with those haunting red eyes, murdering his entire village. They, of course, looked at him with skepticism. Even the security officers weren't convinced, so they sent him for medical evaluations to check his sanity. After thorough tests and lengthy interviews, the report was clear. Harry was perfectly sane, just severely exhausted and obviously traumatized. This rattled the authorities. It's hard to dismiss a perfectly sane man recounting such a vivid, horrifying story. So they decided to monitor the village from afar, long-range cameras, drones. Nights passed with nothing, until one day, their lenses caught something bizarre. A dog walking near the village edge suddenly froze, began shaking, then shifted, its shape blurring, until there stood something else entirely, glaring with those red eyes. The observers gasped, dropping their scopes. They scrambled to alert the top brass. Harry was telling the truth. This is real. The crisis quickly escalated to a national emergency. Reports flooded into high offices. This threatens not just the country, but the entire planet. Yet how do you fight beings you know almost nothing about? How advanced were they? What weapons did they have? How many even were there? Their first step had to be capturing one alive. They rolled out a complex plan, set an elaborate military trap. One night, their target stumbled into it, hit by specialized waves that stunned it instantly. They found themselves facing a creature that offered no resistance once struck. They rushed it to a fortified secret lab, induced a coma, and scientists began poring over its body. What was it made of? How did it react? But days dragged on with no breakthroughs. Then came that one night. A careless guard, who should have known better than to be reckless in such a sensitive facility, wheeled in a massive audio machine once used for acoustic experiments in another lab. He cranked it up ridiculously loud, hoping to kill his boredom, never considering what he might trigger. The deafening sound rattled the whole chamber. Curious, the guard peered through the glass at the creature and froze. Its body was shaking violently, thrashing in weird spasms. He killed the music immediately, and the being went eerily still. Heart pounding, he grabbed the internal phone, breathless. Scientists and officers rushed in, replayed surveillance footage over and over, jaws tightening. There it was, a clear link between the intense sound and the creature's reaction. They decided to test it systematically, rigged up huge speakers, calibrated to even higher frequencies. When they flipped them on, the being convulsed far worse, and its vitals plunged. The lab erupted in cheers. At last, they'd found a lethal weakness. They wasted no time. The military organized a massive operation to encircle the entire village with these audio systems. Giant speakers and generators ringed the perimeter. Crews and soldiers spread everywhere, drones still watching overhead to ensure none slipped out. Then at a single coordinated moment, every system fired up. Waves of powerful sound tore through the air, so intense the very ground seemed to ripple. The invaders couldn't comprehend what was happening. Their bodies began shaking, breaking down. Some tried to flee, staggering toward the edge of the village, only to collapse before making it far. A few that crawled closer to the outskirts were already falling. Apart, troops finished them off quickly, and so the nightmare that had nearly consumed Earth ended in that tiny, tragic village. But the most chilling part of this story isn't how it ended. It's how close Earth came to total ruin without ever realizing it. At the hands of beings humans never understood, whose very name they didn't even know. Military leaders and scientists kept staring up at the sky for many nights after, half expecting more stars to descend, carrying creatures who'd learned from this failure and wouldn't give them a second chance.